All right, here we go again. I don't know if the acoustics are going to sound a little different out here. I'm recording out in my garage. It's a little quiet, but I can definitely hear some echo. So maybe you'll pick it up, maybe you won't. But I'm in the process of doing what I normally do, which is spend way too much time thinking about what cell phone I'm going to use and for what specific purpose am I going to use it for. And right now, I am really considering getting rid of my Sony Xperia 5 Mark III for a multitude of reasons, of which I will explain. Now, firstly, I, for the first time, decided to watch a movie on my MacBook Air. I have the M1, so there's no fan, so it's super quiet. So I said, you know what? Let me give this a try. It's a bigger screen. I'm so used to watching movies on the Sony that I say, let me give this a try. I do know that it's a 60 hertz panel as opposed to 120. I also know that color reproduction or accuracy probably isn't quite the same. I know that for the Xperias, they're always talking about there's a hundred different, it's not 100, a billion different colors that the panels can reproduce. So I definitely was not expecting much. I will say it was just a regular DVD as opposed to a Blu-ray, so I don't think I got the full experience that I potentially could have gotten, nor am I done with my testing because that's something I'm going to have to test. How does this look if I'm watching a Blu-ray? DVD was fine, and that's really all I can say. It was fine. I was able to connect my Bluetooth headphone to it, so it was fine. I will say one movie I watched, I used those same Sony headphones with a wired connection. And the second time I watched the movie, I used Bluetooth. And I will say, whatever these software engineers do when it comes to using Bluetooth for certain things, I feel like, yes, you do just get a better experience using Bluetooth as opposed to a wired connection. That's probably me just saying, oh, the bass was a little more thumpier in terms of actual clarity. It was fine both ways, but I will say I did enjoy it more when I was using the Bluetooth connection as opposed to the wired connection. So right now, it looks like the Mac might be a suitable replacement and not really have to worry about uh, the refresh rate of the next phone that I get. So I'm not going to stop looking, obviously, and then of course, probably within the next week, I'll be able to see a Blu-ray on the MacBook and see how that is. I will say I felt like I noticed a little bit of stutter when watching the movie, and if that's happening on a DVD, I can only imagine what might happen on a Blu-ray. So again, that's something that will come with time, and yeah, hopefully by the end of the week, I'll be able to make a more informed decision. But what I will say, regardless of the MacBook situation, I am actively considering getting rid of the Mark III, either in favor of the Mark IV or for the Asus Zenfone 9. And on the screen right now, you see both of them brought up. The Zenfone 9, technically, I don't think is supposed to be available for purchase in the United States. As we scroll down, I think it'll say that the release date is the 15th of September, and today is the 3rd of September. So I'm not completely sure how some people have gotten their hands on them. I mean, they're open box ones. There's used ones. There's brand new ones out on eBay. So not completely sure where everybody got theirs from, but it looks like I could purchase one and have one by the end of the week if I really, really wanted to get one. Now, also, Sony announced their Xperia 5 Mark IV earlier this week, to which I was a little disappointed, not because of what the phone was, but because I woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning. I thought it was going to be a full blown press event or one of those pre recorded things that kind of like what Apple does now. Or even with Google, they have full blown events that introduce everything that they're going to be doing. But I guess I should have realized that Sony's just simply announcing one device, so just a phone, not a handful of products and or services. So I shouldn't have expected much. But with that being said, the phone itself seemed nice. The one thing in particular that I really think I will like is the squared off flat sides as opposed to the rounded sides that the current model has. It's something that the current model probably should have adopted because the Xperia 1 Mark III, which came out before the Xperia 5 Mark III, had flat sides. So usually it's just a smaller, the Mark V is usually just a smaller version of the Xperia 5 is usually just a smaller version of the Xperia 1. So I'm not too sure why it didn't also have flat sides, but it does now. So that's a good thing. But for both phones, the Zenfone 9 and the Xperia 5 Mark IV, for me, cost is kind of a prohibitive thing. Uh, for the Xperia 5 Mark III that I purchased, I paid about $645 for it, and at the time, that was the most I'd ever spent on a smartphone, and still is. Yeah, anything above, I'd say in the 500s, I was comfortable paying. I mean, I didn't really want to. Let's see, I paid about 550 for my iPhone 12 mini. I think I paid 600 for the S22 Plus. And yes, everything else has been far beneath that. And usually I'm not getting things as new as I have got some of these phones. So, for instance, with the Xperia 5, I think just like a month or two prior to when I got it, it had just been officially released in the United States. With the S22 Plus, again, just a few months had passed since it was officially announced and released. The iPhone 12 was about 6 or 7 months old, so but Apple products usually tend to keep their resale value. But yeah, you can see the cost on the screen right now, and of course those are Amazon prices. But $1,000, I'm just not doing it, and $700 for a phone that I think Asus is saying they're only going to give maybe 2 versions of Android updates, meaning that if the phone is released with Android 12 and Android 13 is already out, I would assume that that counts as one update. So, not that the phone is released with 13 and then you'll get 14 and 15. I am going to read this as you're really going to get one update because you'll get the one that's already out when the phone's released, and then you might get one more next year. And then after that, they're looking at you to buy another phone. So I don't know if I can get on board. But before I get too far ahead of myself, let's start scrolling down to see exactly what either of these phones actually offer. So as we can see right now, they're both 5G phones. As I mentioned already, in terms of release dates, it looks like they're both going to be coming sometime in the month of September. I've heard that the Xperia is not really coming until October, so that's something that we'll be keeping an eye out for. The reason that I'm even looking at either of these phones are the way that they fit in your hand. In 2022, I can comfortably, blanketly say cell phones, smartphones have gotten too big. And it's nice when a manufacturer makes a compact phone by today's standards. So, but the Xperias, they're all tall phones. That's something that we're not going to say, oh, it's small that way. But in terms of the Xperia's width at only 67 millimeters or 2.64 inches, it's a relatively uh, compact phone. And I didn't miss it yet, so we'll get down to it in a little bit. But both of these phones are pretty small, again, by 2022 standards. And looking at the actual dimensions of the phone might not tell the entire story, but when we get down to the actual display sizes, that's when I think we'll get a better understanding of truly how quote unquote small or compact these devices actually are. When it comes to the build of both phones, that's not something that I'm usually really thinking about, with one exception. But you have, your standard Gorilla Glass on the front, whether it's Victus 6, whatever, and it looks like these both are using Gorilla Glass Victus. But what I'm a huge fan of, and the Zenfone 9 actually brings this, is the fact that it has a plastic back. And most phones today are either glass back or metal back. And the glass, obviously, and I don't want to say obviously because I'm sure there's probably ways around it, but with glass backs, something that most manufacturers will then say we now have is the ability to wirelessly charge the device. That's something I know I do not care about. So if I can ditch that from the phone and then also have a plastic back, for me that's a win-win. Also, that usually means the price of the phone could potentially be a little cheaper because you don't have the glass and you don't have the wireless charging coil. Um, so yeah, though, and then the other thing I was going to mention when it comes to that is the fact that if it's a plastic back and whatever type of plastic, the reviews have talked about it, it's just like a polymer, blah, it's plastic. You might not now have the need or feel the need to put a case on the phone. So that's a potential one, another cost savings, and two, another way for the phone to not feel so big by having to put more material around the phone itself. So if we're looking at these two, yeah, the Sony's already so thin and narrow that putting a case on it probably wouldn't matter too much. But since it has the flat sides and the frosted glass back, I might not have the need to put a case on it. Same thing with the Zenfone, because it has a plastic back and also flat sides. I might not need to put a case on it, or might not have the desire to put a case on it. So you know what? Let me see something real fast. I was listening to some Nelly earlier. If I do that, I wanted to see, because sometimes, like, you can see right there where it says no internet connection. I want the website to at least show that the left is the Xperia and the right is the Zenfone. So it doesn't say, okay, back online. If I scroll there, that's what it was there a second ago. Okay, there we go. All right, so finished talking about the build. Now, here's another thing that until you have it, you might not even realize that it's something that you actually like. So, SIM cards. Yes, all the phones that we use today have SIM cards, and most of us put one SIM card in the phone, and that's it. We don't think about it anymore until it's time to upgrade. And yeah, that's pretty much it. But I actually, as I've mentioned before, have 3 cell lines. One is an actual voice line, so I make my phone calls on that, send text messages, so forth and so forth. The other 2 lines that I have are data only lines. And the reason I have them, for the first one, it was a dedicated gym phone. And I feel like I'm probably living back in 2010, where we had one, it might have been a smartphone, might have been a Blackberry, might have been a feature phone, might have been a flip phone, whatever. But then we also had an iPod. So it was 2 distinct devices in order to, have your phone calls and text messages, but then also to listen to music. So in 2022, I still do that. And part of it was to minimize distraction. But now I don't think I would be that distracted. So I could probably just have one phone and be good with it. But the other thing, which I feel is a valid concern, is that I would hate to damage whatever device that I'm using while working out, whether it's lifting weights or doing some type of cardio. And I would hate to drop it, smash it, get too much water or sweat on it, and now it gets damaged. And if that's my primary device, then I'm going to be pretty upset that, hey, I damaged it and now I need to look at something else, blah, 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 blah. Whereas if it's a secondary device, like right now, I'm using a Pixel 2, and that's a pretty old phone. If any of those things happen to it, I wouldn't be upset at all. I'd say, well, that's what this phone was for. I literally paid, I think, $80. It might have been 60 something, but I feel like maybe $80 for it 3 or so years ago. It was listed on eBay. There were some software issues with it. I was able to. It was stuck in the bootloader. I was able to um, essentially force an install of Android onto it, and then it worked, and it's been working ever since. So for 80 something bucks a couple years ago, I would be fine to drop, smash, damage it through too much water or sweat. Wouldn't bother me. But with my iPhone 12, which I don't have any type of real sentimental value towards it, it's just, well, I use that phone for a bunch of other stuff, so I don't want to damage that. So, all that to say, I have multiple lines, and the third line I have, I keep it in my pocket when I'm driving. It's mainly to connect to the radio for Spotify. No reason to get into details about that right now, but again, just another line, and in total, I pay $35 a month for all 3 lines. And that's why I'm okay in terms of my overall level of comfort of having so many devices, because I know that $35 is still far less than what a lot of people pay for a single line. But one thing that my current Sony has, and it looks like the Zenfone 9 also has, is the option to have 2 physical SIMs installed in the phone at the same time. And if I had a device that was my primary phone that gave me that option, that gave me that functionality, maybe I would consider dropping one of my additional phones. Maybe. I mean, at that point, I'd have to say, well, I'm going to drop the iPhone, which I don't know if I can do that right now. but it would be nice if I felt comfortable only having one phone, two SIM cards in it, and each SIM line serving its unique purpose. It looks like the Xperia 5 Mark IV still has the option for dual SIM, but one of them is going to be an eSIM. At least that's how it's looking right now. I don't know if I'm a huge fan of eSIMs right now. Maybe it'll grow on me, but I feel like that's. I was listening to a podcast yesterday, actually, and he was talking about the benefit of it. Okay, if you have a phone that you like and you don't like your carrier, it's as easy as just downloading the SIM of another carrier on your current phone and you're good to go. If you're a prepaid customer and your mobile service provider even allows eSIM, then I could see the benefit from that. But if you're a postpaid customer, which here in the United States, and I think I should back up that from that man that was talking, he's not one of the C-suite executives for a company called Rakuten over in Japan. I feel like he was doing a lot of work in Japan and India, but I feel like he was speaking in a global sense. And I feel globally, which I know I said that completely wrong, but the majority of the world, I feel, at least from what I read just on Wikipedia, operates in a prepaid mindset, which to me makes the most sense. I'm a prepaid customer. But here in the United States, that postpaid mindset, I don't think would allow for people to just jump ship when it comes to, oh, I'm not happy with Verizon today, so I'm going to go to AT&T. Oh, I'm not happy with AT&T today, so I'm going to go to T-Mobile. Because there's just so much stuff wrapped into what people or how people purchase their phones. And yeah, that's a whole nother conversation. But if I could summarize it, the eSIM, in my opinion, gives the mobile service provider more control than they should have. And if you have two physical SIMs, yes, you technically are locked in with that carrier, especially if you're a postpaid customer. However, if you're a prepaid customer, you can just take that SIM card and you are free to move it to any unlocked or network specific device that is compatible with your SIM card. And I like that flexibility. So I don't think an eSIM is something I'm going to use anytime in the near future. But when I was listening to that podcast, I really wish I would have been thinking because I was walking around the track. But yeah, that is something like, hey, wait a minute, sir, you just said, jumping around from company to company. That doesn't work in this type of environment. Because another thing that he mentioned is that most of the people over there were kind of just were bringing their own devices. So you pay for it through however you pay for it, but buying it through the company and maybe having it subsidized or paying it off through monthly installments, it doesn't work the same way. So yes, I'm a huge fan of physical SIMs. I'm a huge fan of bringing your own device. I'm a huge fan of prepaid lines of service. So ways for you as the consumer to kind of do your own thing without being locked to a particular company. So my thoughts on that. And yeah, that's why I prefer two physical SIMs, and it looks like the Asus Zenfone 9 gives us that option. All right. Now, when it comes to water and dust resistance, looks like they're about the same. I try to be pretty careful. And I know everything that I was saying before about potentially damaging my phone when it comes to water damage. It looks like I'd be perfectly fine. But still, sometimes I just don't want to risk it. Now, earlier I was talking about the sizes of the phones themselves, but it doesn't really matter. I mean, I'm not going to say it doesn't because it does, but what does matter and what does make sense to people are screen sizes. So you have 6.1 inches for the Sony, 5.9 inches for the Zenfone, and that 5.9 inches I think is probably going to feel really, really nice in my hand. Excuse me, if I ever actually end up getting one. But 6.1 I feel like is kind of the terminal. Right now, the smallest iPhone, I believe, is 6.1 inches, and that's probably where the industry has revolved around. I mean, my Galaxy that I'm holding in my hand right now is also 6.1 inches. I don't think that's a coincidence. So 6.1 inches down to 5.9, either one probably would be cool. And again, that Sony phone is very, very narrow. So even though it's a little bit larger in terms of actual diagonal size, the feel on the hand is still going to be good. I skipped over the types of displays, which I shouldn't have, so I do apologize. But they're both 120 hertz panels. I don't know. Actually, I do know. I did see that oh, that was weird. Did you hear that beep? I heard the beep, but then I also saw the screen flicker, so that was weird. but the 120 hertz panel on the Zenfone looks like it is adaptive. I don't know if you can force 120 the entire time, but that's something that, maybe I'll continue to do some more research on, or at some point I'll just end up having. So, and I can do my own research. They both are OLEDs. And what I was talking about earlier with Sony and the 1 billion colors, I do feel like color reproduction on my Xperia is really, really good. And I can imagine if I were looking at another display that didn't produce as many colors, I probably wouldn't notice the difference per se. But I've said it before, and I just remember when I was watching the movie Candyman that came out, I want to say either earlier this year or sometime late last year, or sometime last year. I just felt like even though it was kind of gruesome at times, oftentimes the colors on the screen were just popping to the point where I was just like, oh man, this looks really, really good. So color reproduction on both phones is probably really good. HDR is there, 120 hertz, either all the time or adaptive. I'm not sure, but they both appear to have relatively good screens. And there's some other stuff on the screen that if you're interested in, you can take a look at. One thing, and I'll probably stop here because I'm not really a huge fan of cameras because I honestly just don't take too many pictures. But the one thing that I do care about is longevity of support. And as I was mentioning before, with Asus talking about two operating system upgrades and probably 2 years of security updates yes. If and that I feel like that's a crucial question of, okay, if your phone releases with the older version of Android, are you saying that upgrading to the current version of Android, once it's released, counts as 1 year of software updates or upgrades? And if that's the case, I feel like that's some absolute BS. So I don't know. And yeah, that's something that, time will tell. And then maybe if I look online and see what previous Jesus phones are looking like, maybe that'll give me a better understanding. But yeah, like I feel like that's not fair that, hey, your phone came out after Android 13, so your phone needs to be updated to Android 13. And then after that, we get 2 versions of Android updates. That would be fair. But of course, they want you to buy other phones. So who knows what they're going to do. Sony, same situation. I'm never really sure what their update situation is like. I will say for the security updates on my current Xperia, they've been pretty good. They've consistently been 1 month behind. So right now, if I looked at it, I wish I brought it out here, but I'm pretty sure it has the July update on it. And you might say, well, we're in September. Well, yeah, September just started 2 days ago. So it's not here. The August one isn't here yet, but the August one will come. And then hopefully, my hope really is that Android 13 comes with either August or September. I don't know, but Android 13 will probably be a month or 2 late as well. I'd say 2 to 3 months late. But in terms of longevity of support, I really don't know with Sony anymore either. With anything that's not Samsung or a Pixel, I feel like it's kind of a crapshoot, or it's, well, you want to get 1 or 2, and that's it. There's a bunch of other stuff about performance. Yes, the Zenfone has the Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1. So from what I've heard, it's a little faster. It's a little more efficient than its predecessor, which is just the 8 Gen 1. Storage sizes, we got 128 or 256 for both. I thought that the Sony was only going to be available in 128, so that 256 might be accurate. I don't know, but I thought it was just 128. The Sony allows you to install a micro SD card, so that's something that I might use. But again, if 256 is an option, for me personally, I have a SD card in it sometimes. Other times it's in my computer. But either place that it's stored, it's really there just for storage, not actually being utilized. So yeah, with that much storage, for me, 256 would be enough. 128 might also be enough. But yeah, as long as we're not talking about 64, then I think we'll be good to go. The cameras on both of these are probably going to be fine. I'm not going to get into that because I'm not a camera guy. The last thing that I'll probably talk about here, which I know I said that up top, but loudspeakers and stereo speakers. Stereo speakers, yes, really, really good. I'm happy that the Sony still keeps the front-facing speakers as opposed to one front-facing or forward-facing speaker and one downward-firing. Either way, I'm sure they both sound absolutely fine. From what the reviewers are saying, yep, good options on both of them. They both have a headphone jack, which, yeah, like it's one of those things where I was upset when companies took it away, but it's back and I use it sometimes. But as I was saying about the movie that I was watching earlier, Bluetooth can't do everything. So when it can't, yes, I will definitely use a headphone jack or a wired connection. But when it can do what I need it to do, then I'll just turn on the Bluetooth headphones, and that's just the way that it is. So I'm happy that they both have a headphone jack, but I can't say it's something that I would utilize as much as I probably would want to. Yes. Connectivity, yeah, you got your standard Wi-Fi 6E, Bluetooth 5.2, USB-C on the bottom, aptX, so standard stuff. They both have side-mounted fingerprint readers, which are both built into the power button. And there we go. The last thing I'll talk about is the battery life. So on my current Xperia, there's a 4,500 milliamp hour battery, and that serves my purposes just fine. So for this phone to have a bigger battery, yeah, I'm sure I would get probably 2, maybe 3 days worth of battery usage. Of course, depending on what I'm doing, but definitely excited about that because yeah, I hate having to charge something every day. Like my iPhone, I charge just about every day. This Samsung that I'm using to talk on, if I have consistently used it throughout the day, yeah, charge it every day. The Zenfone's battery is a little smaller, but from what I've heard, it's still definitely a full day's worth of usage, if not more. If it does have that adaptive refresh rate, that's another way for it to save some battery life. It's a smaller screen. So overall, it sounds like both of these phones are going to be good picks. I can also, unfortunately, confidently say that neither one of them are going to be that popular. They aren't Samsung. They aren't Apple. And, outside of those two, it's like, well, yeah, you have a bunch of other manufacturers, but those are your heavy hitters, really. And then these companies just aren't that. So they're both going to make really good products. I'll probably own at least one, if not both of them. And yeah, so interesting that it says reverse charging. What does that mean? I know what wireless reverse charging is and the Xperia says that. So I wonder what reverse charging is. I guess if you just plug two USB-C cables in, one USB-C on both ends of the cable and plug your phone into another phone, you can tell it to charge. Maybe, I don't know. But all that to say, I'm actually pretty excited about both of these phones being released. I'm not going to buy either one of them right now. The Sony's not even available, but full price, nah, $700 is the current price for the Zenfone, which on Amazon and on eBay, $700. Yeah, that's just a little bit too much for me right now. So yeah, those are my thoughts and opinions on both of these phones. That's it. Yeah, I don't really have a good way of ending these videos.